order, please. Mr. Longfellow, would you please provide the national anthem in your usual excellent way?
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy sons command. Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
At this point, I'd ask you to remain standing. As most of you are aware, former Councillor Jack Roy passed away suddenly Friday evening. He was served on this council for 3 consecutive terms, and certainly for councillor of Ward 1, and made a tremendous contribution to this municipality. He was a very dedicated and passionate individual, and I wonder if we could just take 1 minute of silence in his honor. Thank you. Joel, thank you very much for being with us again this evening. It's always a pleasure.
It's a pleasure for me too.
Mr. Clerk, are there any addendum items this evening?
None, Your Worship.
Could I have a motion to confirm our agenda? Moved by Councillor Kennedy, seconded by Councillor Main. Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? There being none, we'll move on. Those items requiring separate discussion. Councillor Doucette? No. Councillor Main?
3 and 5, please.
3 and 5. Thank you. Could I have a motion to approve those committee items not requiring separate discussion? Councillor Butter? Seconder? Councillor Desmarais? Any discussion? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. This evening there are no presentations and there are no delegations. Mayor's report. Perhaps just a comment. The installation of the LED lights are going on very well, and they certainly have a very positive impact. I'm looking forward to seeing them throughout the community. I did attend the Entrepreneur of the Year award on Friday evening. We had 2 nominees for different awards. One was Frank DiBartolomeo from Newport Science, and Gail Todd. I was thinking of her husband's name, Atkinson Todd. In any event, neither won, but certainly it was nice to see individuals from our community there, and they certainly did us proud. There's no question about that. They're to be congratulated on that. I will move on to Regional Councillor is not here and doesn't have to be here. Oh, he's here. Oh, you're hiding behind the computer there. Councillor Barry, come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate that. I wanted to update council on the fact that the region approved their budget last Thursday. And in my view, it marked a significant achievement for staff and council because the budget enabled council's strategic priorities that are focused on fostering an environment for economic prosperity in Niagara. Over the past several months, and understand they had the added dynamic of spanning two council terms, no different than this one. But staff did have to work diligently and with patience to set the 2015 budget. The budget proposed an increase of 1.92% to support the 2015 tax supported operating budget with a tax levy of $321 million. On average, a homeowner will pay approximately $27 more for regional services. We're able to keep the tax increase to 1.92% by becoming more effective and efficient, identifying over $2 million of sustainable savings. The operating budget contains and maintains all current programs and services, including investing in better transit, supporting critical social services and frontline emergency services, implementing a strategic economic development plan with various stakeholders and partners, including Port Colborne. Regional Council approved the 2015 rate-supported budget on January 15th. Residents will see a combined 0.84% increase in the water wastewater programs and a 0.66% increase in waste management services. The annual impacts are approximate and vary municipality to municipality. Region also approved a capital budget of $155 million to support significant infrastructure upgrades, including Port Colborne's water treatment plant. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the region for keeping those increases within a very reasonable rate. We can pass that on to the chair. Do we have any questions of Mr. Barrick this evening? There being none? Thank you, Mr. Barrick. Appreciate that. Are there any councillors' items or inquiries that they matters of new business? Councillor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually have 3 items to bring forward tonight. First, I just want to make an announcement that Councillor Doucette and I will be having 2 ward meetings in March. On March 10th, we'll be at the Tim Hortons at Highway 140 and Main Street East. So we'll be there from probably about 6:30 till about 8:30 or thereabouts. Anybody wants to come in and just sit down and chat about any issues they may have, we'll be hoping to see you. That will be on a Tuesday night. On the Thursday night, that's March 12th, we'll be at the Valley Health and Wellness Center doing exactly the same thing, same time. So if you want to just drop in and chat, we'd be very happy to hear whatever concerns you have or hear what it is that you like about living in Port Colborne. So that's one item. The next item is about snow removal. Now, I spoke about this last council meeting. Since then, I've gotten all kinds of feedback from people who heard the council meeting or saw the coverage in the news. And the main point being, where do we go from here? So what I'm asking for is some kind of commitment that we would strike a committee or that staff would get together and take an in-depth look at all snow removal throughout the entire city and possibly fashion a new way of doing it for next year. But in any case, take a good look at it and see where we can find better ways of doing it. It's really important to the people of Port Colborne, obviously, and I think it's just something that it's time to do. Things have changed a lot. People's lifestyles are different. We have more vehicles, that kind of thing. One person called me at about 10 o'clock in the morning with a comment, and by 4 o'clock that afternoon, I had 3 other people calling with the exact same comment, and that was, to solve the cars parking on the street, the city might want to do what they do with the bus routes. Publish a schedule within, say, a 2 or 3 or 4 hour window, whatever, letting us know that, you know, on those streets, plows are going to be going through on those at that time frame, and that may be an answer. People can get their cars off the street easier that way. without as much disruption as just simply not parking all winter long. So that's one. I would ask that we get some kind of assurance that this could happen.
We'll ask for a comment from Mr. Hanson when we're
Okay.
all finished through.
So that's it on snow removal. The next thing is related but not the same. So maybe Mr. Hanson can speak to this now.
Well, perhaps there may be
Okay.
others who have same concerns or similar concerns, and maybe we could wait till we've all
Okay.
commented, if anyone else have any comments on snow removal.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So do you want me to move to my next item?
Yes, please.
Okay. So the next item is about frozen pipes. And I'm sure that there are many councillors here who have heard from their constituents about frozen pipes. I know my phone has not stopped ringing, and I know Councillor Doucette has had the same problem because we've had several conversations about it. Mother Nature dropped a big one on us here. There's no question about that, and I don't think any city could be ready for this when they're not used to having freezing, these kinds of freezing temperatures every year. So I think we're doing a good job, but clearly the situation isn't getting better with the temperature continuing to be so cold. Three things. One, I would like Mr. Hanson to give us an update on where we're at with that. I know the numbers are climbing, but there are people out there who really are interested in finding out what's happening, and they would like to have a daily update, which I've been giving because Mr. Hanson's been great about keeping me up to date. But if we could get an update, that would be good. Another one is many people are asking why the city isn't supplying water to them when they can't get water. So I would like to have some kind of reply to that. The other is people wanting to know, will they be reimbursed for Roto-Rooter or plumbing services if the problems are found to be on the city side? Now, I'm understanding that our policy is yes, they will, but I'd also like to have Mr. Hanson speak to that, also that we can get the media to pick it up and get it out there in COGECO, and it takes a lot of the negative away from this. So, and that's everything I have.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you again to Ron, because I know Ron will be answering this. Ron, in I think it was November last year, we passed a bylaw in regards to the same thing that Councillor Desmarais is talking about, and that is that a resident, if they call a plumber and we find out the problems on the city side, that they will be reimbursed. However, I want to know about businesses. If businesses take a priority, it happened this past weekend, and again, it's frozen pipes. They're happening everywhere, but it caused that business to have to close. And I was wondering if there's, I don't think we mentioned that at all in our bylaw. I talked to Jennifer at the workshop, who was working on Saturday, answering the numerous calls. This business owner called, and he was going to be 85th on the list to get attention to his problem. In the meantime, then that caused him to lose business. That day he had to put the gate across his business and put closed. So he lost all his business today. If it's not resolved by the end of this night, he'll have to close his business again tomorrow. That's lost revenue for the business owner, lost revenue for his employees. And I'm just wondering if Mr. Hanson could answer that question, that even though there are many, and I certainly understand and sympathize with those who have the problems with the water freezing in the city, because it's happening, like I said, everywhere. Listening to the news just before I came in, and they were complaining about how many areas that they had frozen pipes in as well. So that the same thing which Councillor Desmarais brought out. Only this person was concerned about the salt and sand solution mixture that we have to use on our roads. He was concerned because his wife had an accident because she slid through an intersection, which he said she wasn't going fast. I don't know if she was going fast, not going fast. But the concern was, is there, or have we had more complaints of accidents since we switched to this new material? Because I know it was about, I don't know, maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago we switched the mix or whatever. And the accumulation, I guess, at intersections is what he was concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anyone, Councillor Doucette?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron, I may as well throw this all at Ron then. possibility would have been the fire chief, but he isn't here. I've had some complaints about the fact that the fire hydrants are being buried. When someone calls me, I tell them, take your shovel and go dig it out, but there are people out there digging them out as we go along. I was just wondering on the progress of that, because if we can't find the fire hydrants, we're in a lot of trouble. And this was on James Street mainly. I got a bunch of calls on James Street saying there's a fire hydrant, but they're not sure exactly where it is, but they knew it was approximate and it needed to be dug out. So I was just wondering on the progress of that, because I remember the fire chief telling us he was going around and the firemen were going on the afternoon shift, and they did mine across the street from my place. And I noticed they went all the way down the street and did them, so I was just wondering on the progress of that.
Any other councillors? There being none, Mr. Hanson, I think,
This one here.
oh, Mr. May.
I'd like to run as much rest as we can get. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I have,
Turn the microphone.
you think I need the mic? Okay. Excuse me. First of all, Peter isn't here again, and I would like this tax relief for low-income and disabled people explained on camera so people of Port Colborne know there is some type of relief if you are low-income and disabled and you're still trying to stay in your own home. Mr. Heil?
Go ahead, Mr. Howell, if you wish to comment.
Your Worship, the program does exist in the regional municipality of Niagara. It is a regional policy, regional bylaw governed through the Municipal Act. It provides for deferral of a certain amount of property taxes to persons who are disabled or of low income and senior. It's not a write-off, it's a deferral. And when the property is sold, eventually the taxes are repaid, and that's the program that does exist. And anybody, Your Worship, that is interested, if they call City Hall here at 835-2900, we would be very pleased to provide them with information so they can connect. A lot of people don't have access to internet or to the material at the region. We have this material here also, and we will provide it to them.
Mr. Rain, do you have a question further?
No, I just want to thank Mr. Howe for that description of how people go about getting some relief. The other thing is I have to bring up is Schooner Lane. I had a taxpayer or a ratepayer call me up the other day, and he talked for 25 minutes and he was still shaking. He said he almost got hit by a car at Schooner Lane, which comes out behind the LCBO and up by Wilson, the lawyer. So I said, well, I haven't got nothing to do today. The Leafs aren't playing. So I went and parked right by Wilson's, the one set of parking spot right by Wilson's office. And I sat there and I counted the 10 cars. I figured I'm not going to stay here all day. So out of the 10 cars that came through that lane, only 2 of them stopped at the stop sign. And the sight lines aren't great there with the snow piled up and my truck being there, but it's an accident waiting to happen, especially for a pedestrian, because if you're walking by that Wilson's going south, it's too late. And I don't even know the configuration. I know that lane was for, because there used to be all houses there, and that lane was basically to get to their garages and parking. But now we have the TD Bank that has diagonal parking. We have the LCBO that has diagonal parking. And so it pushes them all out that lane, which is a single lane coming onto Elm Street. And this person almost got hit by a car. So I said I would bring it up to council and maybe we could talk about it. I'm still going to give Mr. Hanson a rest. We had this gentleman in here a few weeks back who had to pay a fine for the burning bylaw. And I thought I knew everything there was to know about the burning bylaw until I downloaded it. And I started reading over it and found out that some of the things in our burning bylaw that was done in 1984 have changed. On the 1984 one, it says Ontario Regulation 7381, being a regulation established the fire code effective November the 2nd, 1981, under the Fire Marshals Act, Class 2.6.3.4. Well, if you go to download that, it doesn't exist. The act has probably been changed over the last 20 some odd years. The wording has changed. So anybody that goes on our website and they want to know about the bylaw and they follow this procedure, it's, you know, it just leads you in a circle. The other part is the definitions. Several areas that give definitions that are used in the bylaw, like authorized fires, built-up areas, what's the other one? Developed areas. And it just goes on and on and on, and one kind of blocks one out and one adds to another one, and Shirks and Shores is exempt with the fire chief's approval. And I think 1984, I think it's time to revisit the burning bylaw, as much as people don't want to do it, and bring it up to date. When I was born and raised in Humberton Township, that was the initial burning bylaw. And the initial burning bylaw was you couldn't burn on Mondays and you couldn't burn on Saturdays because people had their clothes on the clothesline. So those 2 days you couldn't burn, or because of the clothesline. So I would like to see this readdressed. I really would, and get rid of some of the definitions to make them more concise and precise, and so the average person can read it and understand it. I went on the Whitby website and looked at their burning bylaw, and it went on for maybe 6, 7, 8 lines. And the bottom line said, if you want to burn, you go see the fire chief, you get a permit for $100, it lasts you for 4 months, and you're in business. So our burning bylaw is about safety and about the environment, but when you compare it to other ones, like Whitby, it's about $100. So I really don't like the $100 business, but we need to revisit this, we need to redo it, and if you need to have a motion, I will make a motion that we do it. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Aquilina, do you have a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Main, I believe in my time here that bylaw has actually been amended in the last maybe 7 years or so. So, well, and that's something that we would have to look into, but I believe that it has been amended.
Mr. Main, you're fine? What we'll do is certainly investigate that, does it exist or not exist as amended, and we will make sure it gets on the website, and provide you with a further copy, Mr. Main, of the actual corrected bylaw. Mr. Heil, do you have a comment?
Yeah, Your Worship, just quickly about the website. The city website has a lot of historical information too, and there are old bylaws on it, so rather than take them off, because it is historical. But if the current ones are not quick and easy to get to, we'll look at that to make sure that the relevancy of the current bylaws is first and foremost before the historic stuff. If it's not there, and I appreciate Your Worship, the comment made by Councillor Main, we will look at it and try and make sure that it is as up to date and easy to access as we can make it. As a member of council we want to make sure that every taxpayer has no issues with it, if we can help it.
Thank you, Mr. Heil.
Thanks, John.
Mr. Henson, are you now ready to respond to?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Several issues here, so I'll deal maybe with the snow removal one first. We'd be happy to meet however council directs to talk about how we do snow. I don't think we're talking just removal. I think we're talking about plowing all the winter operations. We'd be happy to review those if council's pleasure, if you want to have a couple of councilors sit, or you simply want to meet with staff, or if you're directing a report come forward, it's at your pleasure. We can address all the issues with minimum maintenance standards that are legislated by the province on how we have to have our winter operations go forward each year. I think the paramount issue that we've discussed here at council is having vehicles off during the winter operations. Certainly, people can park at night. The bylaw, the overnight parking bylaw was waived a number of years ago, so people can park their vehicles overnight in the city of Port Colborne. It's just during winter operations that they have to be moved while the plows are actually actively plowing snow and removing snow from the streets. So that's the overriding issue, and we'd be happy to meet with council in any way they see could best be addressed with this between staff and council.
Thank you.
Number 2 item I think we'll deal with is the hydrants. The fire chief has directed his platoons to have staff available on the night shifts and so on. So they are actively trying to free up the hydrants wherever they're aware that there's a problem with it. Also, our operations staff, our temps, our winter temps, have been digging out hydrants in various locations. Certainly anybody that has an inquiry or is aware of a hydrant on the street that is covered now, just let us know. Call 905-835-5079. We will have somebody go out and free up the hydrants wherever they might be. So we're actively doing that at the present time.
Calls I got were on James Street. So.
Now the excuse me, the frozen water services. Just an update on that. As of this morning, we have 96 calls that have come in on frozen water services this year. That's, as everybody's probably aware, that's an inordinate number of water services to be frozen, given the temperatures. We haven't had one day above freezing in February this year. That's a large number. The overriding fear here as well is we probably have a number of water main breaks below the frost line as well. So once the frost starts to get up, we're preparing ourselves and gearing up for what probably going to be a large number of water main breaks at the same time. So with the water services, if council will remember that in December of 2014, we passed a bylaw and a policy change on frozen water services. And what that did was put a mechanism in place and for reimbursement. If somebody calls a plumber, they find that, and the plumber finds that the frozen water service is on the city side, outside of the shutoff at the property line, they can be reimbursed for the cost for the plumber. We ask in the policy that they first call the plumber because a large number of the frozen water service is actually on private property. The most effective way to deal with this is to have the property owner call their plumber, determine where the frozen portion of the line is, if they can. That way the frozen service can be corrected immediately. If it's on the private side, they pay the plumber, good to go. So we've had 96 calls, as I said, this year. We've had 2 crews working full-time on this. We have a thawing machine and 2 full-time crews. They worked all weekend to address the issues. We still have a large number that have to be addressed. What we're finding is a large percentage of the services that have been frozen are on the private side, about 65%. So we're working away at that. We still have quite a number on the list that we have to address. So we're just, again, reinforcing the requirements for anybody that has a frozen water service. Give a plumber a call. You can call our city work yard at that same number I just gave out to get information on what you might do. In the case of a frozen water service, we've posted the policy on our website for information for anybody that needs it. Anybody that's calling and getting information on the service that is frozen from their plumber, if they determine that the issue has been resolved, we'd ask that they call us back and let us know so we can take them off the list and move on to the next one. We've had a couple instances where the plumbers have told us that, in fact, it's on the city side. We will have a crew over there, spend 4, 5, 6 hours, and in fact find it's on the private side. So that's a waste of time, a waste of resources, because we should be on the service that's in fact on the city side and is required to get that cleared up from our side of it. So in addition to the 96 on the list and the ones that are being addressed, we're going to make a request in the 2015 water budget. We have an ongoing list from years past where a lot of these services on the city side are freezing. They've frozen a number of times over the past couple of years. So we're going to make an $80,000 request on the water budget to have these services lowered this summer during the construction season. So I'm not sure if that answers everybody's questions. If there's any others, I'd be happy to answer.
Councillor Bodnar?
Ron, Mr. Mayor, through you, a number of years ago, we had talked about how we could get ownership of that water line right up to the people's homes. Is that at some point going to be thought about again? Is it of any use? I know Councillor Steele was often bringing that up, and where we would control it, and then if it needed to be fixed, we would fix it to our standards, and I just wondered where that is in the mix.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there has been a lot of discussion in the last few years about that issue. The definition under the municipal waterworks that we have now and that is legislated, municipal waterworks are the mains and the services up to the curb stop. That's our responsibility for maintenance and operation. The section, the private water service pipe between the curb stop and the house itself is privately owned, and it is the responsibility of the homeowner to actually do all the maintenance on that and replace it as required. We have about 6,600 services in the city. There'd be quite a cost to that. We know there's still many services that may be leaking beyond the curb stop, and that's one of the main focal points in looking at trying to take ownership in that, because there's no question there's a loss in water before the water meter. In Port Colborne, because of high water table and rock conditions, we haven't put water meters out in chambers at the property lines. We have them in the houses in almost all cases. So there certainly is a loss, and there's an argument to be made for eliminating that leak by having the meters further out or having the ownership on the private side as well. But really there hasn't been any discussions beyond the legislative requirements of a municipal waterworks.
Councillor Kennedy, then Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ron, you never answered me about the businesses.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay.
We've been considering exceptions because of the year this year. We've had requests to consider the elderly, possibly disabled, or a business that may be experiencing severe financial constraints because of a loss of water. Many businesses depend on water on a daily basis, potable water. So I've instructed our staff to consider any exceptions that are required. If we're aware, we wouldn't be aware of every social situation, of course, in the 97 here, but if we're made aware, and we have been by one of Councillor Demaray's inquiries that come in on the weekend about an elderly person who was out of water. So we can certainly make those exceptions and considerations so that elderly, disabled, and I think in the case of a business that needs potable water, we don't want to see anybody suffer any severe hardship. So we would certainly try to put an emphasis on getting those fixed first if we can. Okay.
Councillor Demeray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ron. Ron, thank you so much for all your efforts on this. The one thing I did want to know, though, is there any mechanism for us to supply water to those people who have been out of water for quite a while? There are many people that just don't have the ability to get the water. So.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the importance of the call when it first comes in is the determination of the ownership of the problem. We haven't in the past supplied water. We've made considerations if it was determined that the frozen service was on the city side and we were able to fix that, and we've asked residents in the past to run their water through the cold period. We have made allowances to pick up the cost of that water for those persons. We haven't actually supplied potable water in any sense for water service that isn't operating. That would strictly be at the direction of council if the council saw fit. If we're saying that if the problem is on the private side, is a responsibility of the homeowner, and we wouldn't take any consideration to supply water in those cases. And one other point, if I might, Mr. Mayor, something I forgot to discuss or bring forward. What some municipalities are doing this year, and I have an example from Kincardine, and we found a couple others who are actually notifying residents, and it's good for the public purpose as well. notifying the residents that it may be to their benefit if they're aware that there's been a frozen water service at their property in the past, or have any concerns that the water service might be freezing. Places like Kincardine have said that due to the current depth of the frost, they're urging residents to allow one tap in their house to run a small stream of water. The costs aren't that prohibitive. We're seeing costs in talking to our billing department, maybe between $30 and $40 throughout the winter season if they were to run a small stream of water. So if you consider the cost of $30 or $40 over the winter season as opposed to the cost of a frozen water service, which may cost you $400 or $500, it's something the residents may consider doing if they're not aware that it's an option for them, just to let that water run slightly during this extremely cold weather.
Thank you, Mr. Hanson. Any other questions of council? Councilor Doucette?
In my case, it's just a comment to Mr. Hanson, and I think the public need to hear this. I have never had a frozen pipe, never had a frozen line, and we've had some really cold nights. This Monday, that past Monday, the water meter itself froze. So it has definitely been an extreme year for freezing. And I think that everyone has to understand that if you do run your water a little bit, it's a lot better than having to call and getting that $400 or $500 charge, because that's how much it's going to cost you on a day that is not a regular day. And in my case, I had no choice. Once I thought it out, I winded up with water all over my coal cellar, and the water was running quite a bit, and we had to have someone come in. So it would be to everyone's advantage to take a look and seriously turn one of the taps probably closest to the meter where the service is coming in, to make that water run a bit. And I think that's very important. And I was one of the ones over the weekend that was stuck. We had no water for about a day. So I was lucky. I was able to find the problem and put a heater on it, and before you knew it, we had water. But then we had water everywhere, so, you know.
Councilor Desmarais?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would actually like to see a committee formed, and I would actually like to be a part of that committee to look at snow removal. I don't know if that requires a motion, but if it does, I would be happy to make that motion.
I don't think it requires a motion. We'll just make sure, we'll strike the committee, and anyone who wishes to volunteer on it, please give me your names, and we'll sit down with Mr. Hanson and the Works folks and get on top of it. All that being said, I was approached yesterday by a lady in Welland, and in fact, she came up to me, and I thought she referred to snow removal, and I thought, here comes another comment on the snow removal. But there was a comment, and it was a very positive comment, and she was very appreciative of the snow removal that we have in Port Colborne. So take credit for the good as well as assuming responsibility for the bad. But we will certainly get on top of that with Councilor Desmarais' recommendation. But I think the Works crew deserve certainly a pat on the back. It's been a terrible, terrible winter, certainly February, and I think they have responded to the best of their abilities under the circumstances, which have been bad. There being nothing else, is there any comments that would come this way from any of the staff on anything? There being none, I would call for the adoption of the minutes of the fourth meeting, special of the Committee of the Whole of February 6, 2015. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Doucette. Any comments? Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Also call for adoption of the minutes of the fifth meeting regular of the Committee of the Whole on February 9th, 2015. Councillor Bodner, seconded by Councillor Doucette. Any comments, questions? There being none, I call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It is carried as well. Move on to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Mr. Main, you had 2 items.
Yes, I did. The Department of Community and Corporate Services, Community Services Division, report number 2015-38, subject amendment to the lease agreement for the Tier 2 Junior A Whalers Ice Hockey Club at the Valet Health and Wellness Center, lease extension. Recommendations, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne approves the amended lease agreement, thereby authorizing the City Clerk and Mayor to sign and execute the intended agreement on behalf of the municipality and enter into an agreement with the Junior A Niagara Whalers Ice Hockey Team. That the City Clerk is further directed to prepare a new bylaw for council approval.
Thank you, Mr. Main. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Danch, thank you. Any discussion?
Yeah, I guess some discussions here.
Any comments?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes, Mr. Main?
So when I get to the page here. I read the lease over, and it's pretty straightforward. If I can get it to come up here. This the one part that it needs some clarification, and it's the section 4, a rental fee calculated by multiplying the hourly ice rental fee established from time to time by the schedule of facility fees, arena schedule of rates, and the junior hockey rate. I know they're paying $1,260 a month for rent, plus $105 GST for the property end of it. Could, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Keane, could you explain to me the rental fee calculation, please?
Mr. Hakeem?
In terms of the rental fee calculation for the room, through your worship to Councillor Main?
Not the room. The room is pretty straightforward.
Correct.
The ice time.
The ice time
And the
is
junior
based-
hockey rate, yeah.
Okay,
Please.
through your worship. The ice time is based on a rate that was previously established last season, and council approved that rate. It is above the minor hockey rate, yet below the prime rate that we normally charge for other user groups, adult user groups primarily. Being a youth organization, mean age is around 17, 18. They're still in the youth category, but what we do is there's a premium over and above the minor hockey rate that they pay, as well as additional fees depending on the type of game and level of service that they require for their games on a weekly basis.
Other questions,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Main? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Keane, what exactly would that work out to? I know we're $1,260 a month. They play 4 times a week, or practice? They practice and play 4 times a week, basically, according to this.
That's correct. They have 3, I believe right now, 3 training periods and 1 additional game night. They play once a week.
Okay, so you would say that we're probably looking at $1,000 a week for?
I would have to go back and get
Okay.
some statistics on that, but I can certainly get you the information with regard to the amount of ice time that they use and the revenues that we generate from the Junior A program. Certainly, I can get that information to you. No problem.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Okay.
Any other questions rising out of Mr. Main and Mr. Hakeem's exchange? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, Mr. Main, I believe is number 5.
Yes, number 5, item 5.
Yes.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Department of Planning and Development, Economic Development Division Report 2015-38, subject information report, business retention and expansion program report. The council receives this report for information.
Just a comment on, well, first of all, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Kenny? Thank you. On the discussion, I'll be calling on Avinash for a comment, but basically we had this committee on business retention and expansion. They have completed their report, and we want to circulate it to the executive committee and to the larger committee and to the public for any comment before we finalize it. As we're undergoing a study of our strategic plan, and this report fits very well with that, so that we will move forward if the motion's passed. But before we do, perhaps Mr. Asha, if you do have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know if Councillor Main has any specific questions that he wanted to ask about the report. I'd be more than happy to answer them before I give my little spiel.
I have nothing specific. It's pretty good reading, and I would just like you to give your spiel. Sorry.
Okay, no, not a problem. So certainly this has been a long time coming. Work initially started on this back in June of 2013. We're one of the few municipalities in southern Ontario, certainly the only municipality in the Niagara region that has completed such a comprehensive business retention and expansion study. And it was really the first of its kind that was done here, to the best of my knowledge. Just a few highlights I just want to point out about the validity of the study. Certainly, we spoke with 100 businesses. It's not to say that it's necessarily representative of every single business in the community, but it certainly cuts through a pretty large swath of the business community. Figure 1, and I don't know if you want to jump to figure 1, it doesn't matter, figure 1 in the report. Highlights the different sectors that each of the businesses describe themselves as belonging to. So we have manufacturing, we have retail, we have downtown, we have downtown retail, tourism downtown. I mean, we have a good number of sectors. We didn't just focus on one. We tried to be as representative of all. This included some of Port Colborne's largest employers. In the manufacturing sector, it also included some of the most long-standing businesses in Port Colborne. It also included some of the smallest employers and some of the newer businesses in the downtown area. Figure 2, ownership of businesses. Again, 70% of the businesses that we interviewed are locally owned. 15% are locally owned with more than one location. Some are franchises. Very small fraction are branch locations of national or international or regional outfits. So it speaks to a high number of, or a high subscription to businesses being owned locally, operated locally, owners having a real strong connection to the community. Which I think is ultimately a strength for our businesses and a strength for our community. Figures 9, 10, 11, and 12 speak to businesses being very supportive of the quality of life, the housing stock, some cases the availability of service land and real estate, and to a lesser extent the workforce. Businesses are generally happy, it appears, with operating in Port Colborne. Certainly not to say that we're the city doesn't have anything to do. We can always improve. We can always work to just maintain the level of happiness that the business community has with operating in the city. Finally, kind of patting the city administration on the back, but figure 15 speaks to how businesses rate planning, engineering, zoning, and building permits within the city, and 35% of businesses said that it was good. It had a good experience with planning, engineering, zoning, and building permits. 9% said it was excellent. 18% said it was fair, and 29% said they don't know, and only 8% said poor. So certainly, when I say that this is an administration, staff-wise, that is very responsive to business community the business community does generally feel the same way. And I'll finish it off with figure 16. I mean, I could go on. There's 30-odd graphs and questions that were studied in this report. But a plan of business change over the next 18 months. 64% of businesses plan to remain the same. 25% want to expand or plan on expanding. Only 2% plan on downsizing. 3% and 5% want to relocate or sell, respectively. So it again speaks to a fairly healthy business atmosphere in Port Colborne. There's no, it, again, doesn't mean that we can sit back and be content. We can always press forward and try to keep these conditions in place or improve the conditions. To Mayor Maloney's point about this report now going back to a larger committee, yes, okay, sorry. It will be going back to a larger committee, a more comprehensive report, including the skills inventory that was completed in 2014. Will also be coming back to council at a later date. That was the telephone survey that was done to residents in the city and with businesses in the city to see what sort of skills people have in the workforce and what sort of skills our businesses require. Much more comprehensive document will be coming back in the near future. But I just wanted to give this report to council just so that they have a good idea of what's happening in the business community as we move through the strategic planning sessions.
Thank you, Mr. Osh.
Thank you.
Any comments from members of council to Mr. Osh? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Thank you, Mr. Osh. I don't believe there are any notices of motion this evening, Mr. Howe?
No, I have nothing, Your Worship.
Is there anyone from any member of council that wishes to make a motion? There being none, I'd call for an adjournment of the meeting of the Committee of the Whole. Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. All those in favor? Carried. And we'll move on to the regular council meeting agenda. Call the regular council meeting to order. Are there any addendum items?
No, Your Worship.
Thank you, CA Ohio. I have a motion to confirm the agenda. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Danch. All those, any comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Are there any disclosures of interest? There being none, call for the adoption of minutes. First is the minutes of the 5th meeting special of council on February 3rd, 2015. All those in favor? Any opposed? Moved and seconded by Councillor Kenny and Councillor Bodnar. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Minutes of the 6th meeting of the regular of the council of February 9th, 2015. Is there a motion to accept those, approve those? Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Butters. Any discussion? Being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Are there, currently now, determination of council items requiring separate discussion? Are there any? Then I'd call for a motion to adopt those council items. Moved by Councillor Kenny, seconded by Councillor Main. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have several proclamations. I'll read them. Moved by Councillor Danch, seconded by Councillor Kenny. Thank you. Whereas World Autism Awareness Day will be recognized on April 2nd, 2015 in Canada, thanks to Liberal Senator Jim Munson's Bill S-206, an act representing World Autism Awareness Day. And whereas autism spectrum disorder, ASD, affects more than 100,000 Ontarians and is now recognized as the most common neurological disorder, affecting 1 in every 94 children, as well as their friends, family, and community. And whereas ASD is a spectrum disorder, which means it not only manifests itself differently in every individual in whom it appears, but its characteristic will change over the life of each individual as well. A child with ASD will become an adult with ASD. And whereas Autism Ontario is a leading source of information and referral on autism, and it's one of the largest collective voices representing the autism community in Ontario, and whereas Autism Ontario is dedicated to increasing public awareness about autism and the day-to-day issues faced by individuals with autism, their families, and their professionals with whom they interact. The association and its chapters share the common goals of providing information and education, supporting research, and advocating for programs and services for the autism community. Now therefore, I, Mary John Maloney, proclaim April 2nd, 2015 as World Autism Awareness Day in the city of Port Colborne. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The second proclamation, again, I ask for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Danch. Whereas the Fresh Air Fund provides free summer experience in the country to more than 7,000 New York City children each summer. And whereas the Fresh Air Fund allows city children to visit the homes of volunteer host families in 13 states from Virginia to Maine to Canada. And whereas Port Colborne families have been participating in the Fresh Air Fund's volunteer host family program for over 130 years. And whereas the Fresh Air Fund allows New York City children to enjoy Port Colborne backyards, parks, and wide open spaces. And whereas the Fresh Air Fund is celebrating its 139th summer, now therefore, I, Mayor John Maloney, proclaim March 20th, 2015 as the Fresh Air Fund Day in the city of Port Colborne. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Are there any minutes of boards, commissions, and committees? Mr. Howe?
There are, as listed on your agenda for
Minutes.
block approval.
Minutes of the Environment Advisory Committee meeting of November 12th, 2014, and minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting of November 26, 2014. As a block, call for a motion to accept those. Seconder? Mr. Wagner? Oh, has a question? I think B. Go ahead, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the Environmental Advisory Committee, because Councillor Kenny is on there, there's talk, remember the monarch butterfly road cutting weed thing? I see that they hope to bring a report to council in February. I just want to make sure before they bring that report to council, they've talked to the farmers. I had a discussion actually today with the original group that had a concern, and they had heard nothing about it. And I see here they already said they talked to some farmers. These are the main cash crop farmers in the area. They have not had a discussion, to my knowledge, as of today with them. I wonder whether you could just take that back to the committee and just bring that forward if it hasn't been.
So, Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Bodnar, the last meeting of the Environment Committee, that report is coming back to council with the kind of a plan. And then this council can approve or not that plan. And so we wanted to bring it to this table first, and then part of it is obviously to go to the farmers involved on the pilot project areas. But we wanted to kind of lay it out to council first to see if it made kind of sense to everybody around this table, because that's basically what you tasked the Environment Committee to do, is to come up with a plan that will involve the stakeholders, the farmers, everybody involved in this, as well as residential homes. So that was kind of where we were trying to figure out the best way to approach it. So we thought bringing it back to this table for your input, approval, whatever, was the way the committee thought process was. So nothing's going to happen until we have a look at it here, and then whatever suggestions or tweak is going to be made. But the committee's fully aware of the absolute necessity to, go to whoever's going to be affected by this. And really, by the looks of it, the effects I don't think there's going to be really big effects, to be honest with you, the way it's being structured. So it's looking pretty positive. Thank you.
Good. Fine, Mr. Mog? Yep. Are there any other questions or comments? There be none, call for the question. All those in favor of adopting the minutes of those two committees in block? Opposed? It's carried. Any notices of motion, again, from anyone? There being none, we move on to the introduction and consideration of the passage of bylaws.
Your Worship, there are 3 bylaws to consider tonight. So to read it first, second, and third time, the motion of the bylaws are as follows. 6194/20/15, being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with Alfred Beam Excavating Limited. With Alfred Beam Excavating Limited for the project 215-2, water main installation and replacement, cement plant road, Lakeshore Road West, and Bayview Lane. Bylaw number 6195/21/15, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement, an amended lease agreement with the Junior A Niagara Whalers Ice Hockey Club for the Valley Health and Wellness Center, and to repeal bylaw number 6109/7514, and bylaw number 6196/2215, being a bylaw to appoint a deputy clerk commissioner for taking affidavits. Those are the bylaws, Your Worship.
I call for a motion in block to pass those bylaws. Moved by Councillor Desmarais, seconded by Councillor Butters. Is there any discussion? There being none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? It's carried. Next is the confirmatory bylaw. That's council agenda item number 12.
Bylaw number 6197/2315, being a bylaw to adopt, ratifying, and confirm the proceedings of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at its regular meeting of February 23rd, 2015. The bylaw's read.
Call for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Butters, seconded by Councillor Desmarais. Any discussion? Comments? There be none, call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. At this point, I'd call for a motion to go into closed session. So that motion, I'd like to see the council do now proceed in camera in order to address the following matters. Minutes of the closed session portion of the February 9th, 2015 council meeting. And B, a Department of Planning and Development report number 2015-34 concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 239(2)(c), a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. Call for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Doucette, seconded by Councillor Bodnar. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor, if somebody happened to have a conflict with this, when would they declare that conflict?
Right at the beginning of the in-camera session.
Or do they have to declare it before we go in camera?
No, I think we could declare it when the beginning of the meeting. I'll call for that question.
Okay.
Okay, all those in favor? Move, carried.